Hello, and welcome to another episode of Through the Monocle. Today, we will be discussing Christopher Nolan's Memento. As always, I am your host, Grant Ingram, and joining me today, it is the Joe Pagliano to my Guy Pearce. It is Grant Skillen. How you doing, Grant?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be talking about this. So, we came to a decision, everybody. We finally have a premise. For once in our lives, we know
We
what
came
we're
to a
talking
decision?
about. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. We talked about this yesterday. So, for the rest of the year, we're going to be doing directors. The first of which, believe it or not, is Christopher Nolan.
It's crazy. There's no way.
Yeah, I know, right? Fresh off its success with Oppenheimer, we're like, okay, it's time. We're going to do something kind of unique. So this month is going to be Nolan. We're not entirely sure what next month's going to be. I believe October is when we're penciling in Marty Scorsese because Killers of the Flower Moon's coming out. We're going to kind of work our way through the list of some famous directors. If you guys like it, we'll keep doing it after the end of the year, but we're going to at least give it a run through the new year. All right. All of the housekeeping out of the way, which, by the way, if you have thoughts, email us at, I believe it's through the monocle at gmail.com. If not, it's much talk about nothing at gmail.com. Both work. Or at least one of them does. Grant's doing his ASMR bottle twisting.
Yes, sir.
His red sun drop. All right.
Yep.
So today we're talking Memento. Memento came out, and I believe it's 2000. It is.
I believe that's correct.
Written and directed by Chris Nolan, based on the short story Memento Mori by his brother, Jonathan Nolan, which was published a year later. It follows Leonard Shelby, played by Guy Pearce, a man who suffers from anterograde amnesia, resulting in short-term memory loss and the inability to form new memories. Grant, what are your initial thoughts about Memento?
It's a good movie. I can relate with him because my brain has an innate ability to not be able to form coherent sentences. So we'll see how this episode goes. But no, it's a good movie. It's a strange movie. I mean, especially just in the order and how it's structured and how the story goes along. It starts with like the story, and then it intersperses different moments in time throughout it. It's definitely a unique take on how to do a movie, and I think it works. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I agree with that for the most part. I will say it doesn't necessarily jump around time as much as it works backwards. Like, we start at the end, and then we go back and we watch the lead up to that, and then we go back and we watch the lead up to what we just saw, and then we go back again, almost like Guy Pearce's character, who can't remember things. It does a good job, in my opinion, of showing us what that lead character is going through. But because he can't remember things, we don't have any of the information to be able to remember. We're almost living it like he is. And I think that is what makes this movie very interesting.
Yeah, I see that.
So as far as the plot goes, Grant, what are your thoughts? Like, do you like the plot? Like,
yep, I like the plot. I don't like this. I don't like being put
I don't
up
like
big.
this either. I know. Guys, bear with us. We're trying some new stuff out with production because we want to be professionals. And if you look at Grant, he looks real professional. Not even wearing his much talk about nothing sanctioned hat. It's sad, honestly.
Yeah.
So yeah, bear with us. We're doing some interviews right now, and we're trying to get better at the whole making it look pretty side of things.
We're trying. We're getting there.
We're suffering, but we're getting there. Yeah, I think the plot myself. I personally think the plot is very good. I like that. I like the twist. Now, I will say the movie's 23 years old as we're speaking, which is weird. Spoiler warning. You have until Howard the Duck goes away to click away. spoilers. The twist at the end of the movie, or the beginning of the movie, depending on how you look at it, is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like that he's been hunting his wife's killer for this long, and he forgot he'd already found him. So now they're just using him to essentially exact revenge on these people. Is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like I think that is, it's a brilliant twist because we're sitting there emotionally invested, and then we feel betrayed with him. I love it.
Yeah, it's definitely a twist that you don't expect. As the movie's going, you obviously think it's building up to finding the killer and killing him or having the confrontation, but it's just the genius twist of that's actually not what's happening. And it fits perfectly with the whole thing of the movie with his memory loss of he just doesn't remember it. He didn't get to write it down, so he doesn't remember that it happened. And these other people have their motives, so they're not going to tell him what he did.
Yeah, it is. It's heartbreaking in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, we do see him hunting down his wife's killer. We watch him tracking down Teddy, who is played in this film by Joe Pantoliano, who's not Joe Pagliano. That's a different guy entirely. Joe Pantoliano, famous for portraying, oh, good Lord, who was his character in The Sopranos? I'm trying to remember. Ralph Cifaretto. He won an Emmy for that. He was in The Matrix, like very, very famous actor. He's in The Fugitive with Harrison Ford and our good friend Tommy Lee Jones. And by good friend, I mean the unfortunate Two-Face from last week. Yeah. So he's portrayed by Joe Pantoliano, and I would say expertly so. The acting in this movie is fantastic.
It is, yeah. All the characters do a great job of manipulating him and making it seem like they're just being friendly and being normal when they're not.
And Guy Pearce does a fantastic job of portraying just this broken man.
Mm-hmm.
Like it gets kind of brutal, like when he's tattooing himself and writing down all the sticky notes and he can't remember, and you can feel his frustration, in part because you also don't know. Mm-hmm. Again, the filmmaking is fantastic. Especially for an early Christopher Nolan, I believe. I'm going to look this up because I'm not exactly sure how old Nolan was at this point. So he's 53 now. This was 23 years ago. This was 30-year-old Chris Nolan. This was, I believe, his first mid-budget movie. And it didn't cost a whole heck of a lot. I think it was like $9 million? Yeah, $5 to $9 million, and it made $40 million. Movie is really good. Made on a shoestring budget. This was before he started working with a studio. He got it distributed by Newmarket Films. Like, this was his last non-studio movie. After this, he moved on to Insomnia, starring Robin Williams and Al Pacino. And that one, I believe, was produced by Warner Brothers, just for Nolan history.
Yeah, and I think that's fitting because this is a very well done movie, especially knowing the budget was that small, and just seeing the quality of the movie and the quality of the acting. It's easy to see why he ended up moving on, working with Warner Brothers, and then obviously Batman. It's really easy to see why that happened.
And I mean, he's obviously really good at telling detective stories, right? Mm-hmm. Like we see that here. I can understand why they gave him the world's greatest detective. Also, something I find fascinating about this movie is because that budget is so tiny, there is no like crazy special effect. Like nothing explodes, nothing, but yet it still sucks you in. You still feel the stakes of the film. And on top of that, like you can see why it's so cheap because he made the movie around his budget.
Yeah, and it's very well shot. So while they didn't do anything impressive, they didn't really need to because they just made you engaged with the writing, with the acting. It just worked, especially on a budget. It's like, wow, I can't believe it was that cheap.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel like it was a very inexpensive movie. Of course, by movie standards, inexpensive.
Right.
At all.
And it does a good job with its gimmick of moving from color to black and white and back to color to show you what's happening and when. when the past and the present and the future is. Like, I think it's just really, really good. He uses that again in Oppenheimer, which I guess minor spoilers for Oppenheimer. He uses it to denote perspective. And it was something he mentioned in the press tour leading up to Oppenheimer that he wanted to be able to do again. And I think...
Hint, hint.
Yeah, he executed it really well in both. And it's just one of those things that, like, I don't know who teaches you that in film school.
Now it's Chris Nolan.
Right. But I don't know before that, like, who comes up with that idea. It's that kind of thing that moves film forward. And I think that's something he did as a 30-year-old working on an indie movie that his brother wrote a short story about, and he just kind of took and ran with. I think that is what makes Chris Nolan Chris Nolan. That's why I like him so much as a director. I would argue he is... I mean, I know for a fact he's, like, in my top 3 as far as directors go. I love all of the movies I've seen of his. Like, even Tenet, which a lot of people didn't, I thought was fantastic. I believe we agreed to bend the rules a little bit and talk about Tenet because it is a few years old.
Yeah. I mean, we've made it 10 minutes. I haven't mentioned Rotten Tomatoes at all. I mean, this is loved by fans and critics. It's got a 93% tomato meter, 94 audience score.
Yeah.
I think that's very well earned because, like you were saying, it's a very well shot movie, well directed, well written, just all around fantastic movie.
Yeah.
Especially on the budget. Like, I don't know what you knock in this movie. Like, for it to be a $5 to $9 million budget movie working with what they could, like, what do you knock? Like, even not knowing the budget, what do you knock?
Nothing, because that's the mark of a good filmmaker. And I say this as somebody who wants to make movies. The mark of a good filmmaker is writing to your budget. So if you know you have a $5 million budget, don't go writing in a bunch of explosions. Do a smaller grounded thing. This is a smaller grounded thing. You can't see the budget on the screen. It is masterfully shot. Cinematography is gorgeous. The acting is fantastic. Like, you cannot see the budget. The actors he went and got were cheaper at the time. I mean, Guy Pearce was not like a crazy huge movie star. Still isn't. I would argue he's probably one of the most underappreciated actors ever. I mean, he was in Rules of Engagement. But like, he wasn't the guy in Rules of Engagement. Like, at no point was he ever really the star, except, like, I mean, maybe he had a couple of movies. Now, I mean, he's doing some stuff, but he's not as, like, he's just not. He's just not as big of an actor as someone with his level of talent should be.
Yeah, and I mean, I think all around, like we've already mentioned, I just think all around the acting is really good, and like you wouldn't like again, I don't know what you would look and go, oh, I think this acting could have been better. It was very well acted overall, not just Guy, but the rest of the cast.
Yeah, exactly. And my point is that he went out and got actors who are fantastic on a budget that shouldn't be able to get actors of this caliber. Carrie-Ann Moss is in this movie. Like, she was a big star. She's coming off The Matrix. Like, that's a big deal. Like, she at the time especially was a really, really big star because of that Matrix, because of The Matrix. But like, she did other stuff as well. And then, like, everybody in this stinking movie was fantastic. So the budget went to the actors, and I guess renting the cameras, because, like, what else are you paying for here? But the actors are just awesome. I know I'm beating a dead horse. It's almost like I can't remember the sentence I said before, so I gotta, like, write it down or something. But it's just really good. It's really good the whole way through. It is the quality that we have come to expect from Nolan, but it was that from being his first feature-length movie. Like, that's insane to me. Yeah,
I was looking at the trivia facts, and at the end, when he says, "You don't have a clue, you freak," when Teddy says that, Nolan wasn't happy with how Joe delivered the end of the line, so Nolan re-recorded it himself, impersonating his voice the best he could, and that's what made it in the movie. Was Nolan impersonating Joe Pantoliano's voice.
I would never have guessed that.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. Pantoliano didn't even know it until an interview for the movie is when he found out.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's like, it's just a commitment to making movies for movies' sake that Nolan, I mean, still has, right? Like, he still goes out and makes the movie he wants to make. Mm-hmm. And I mean, fortunately, thanks to his Batman movies, he's been given the ability to do that by just about any studio. He's worked almost exclusively with Warner Brothers up until Oppenheimer, which was distributed, of course, by Universal. But like, he's got that freedom because he is a living legend. I mean, the man's 53 years old and is producing hit after hit after hit after hit. 53 is not that old. I mean, especially for somebody whose level of quality is on par with, say, a Marty Scorsese, who's, I believe, in his mid-80s.
Yeah, I mean, you said he was 30 when this movie came out, which means he would have been 35 when he did The Dark Knight.
Right. Or no, 35 when he did Batman Begins.
Okay.
The Dark Knight was 08, but yes.
Okay. So 38 still.
Yeah. No, he's really stinking young. But my point is that he's that young, and not only did he make a good movie, he made a good movie, another good movie. Insomnia is very good. It flies under the radar a lot. We might end up talking about that one. We haven't discussed, but we might end up talking about that one. He made this good movie, made another good movie. Then he made 3 Batman movies that are considered to be the best comic book movies of all time. Mm-hmm. Less so on the third one. In the middle
first
of
two,
those
especially.
Right. In the middle of those 3 Batman movies, he made The Prestige, which is fantastic. He made Inception, also one of the best movies ever made. Then he goes and makes Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey. That's also fantastic. From there, I believe he went to Dunkirk, seems like. I think that was correct. I guess I can pull him up. I'm going off of memory. So it's Batman Begins, The Prestige in 2006, The Dark Knight in 2008, Inception in 2010, The Dark Knight Rises in 2012, Interstellar in 2014, Dunkirk in 2017, Tenet in 2020, and Oppenheimer in 2023. It should be pointed out, this is not his first feature. This is like the first feature that really got a large following. The first one was actually just called Following. It was good as well, but not quite as good, if that makes sense. Like, it's not that same.
He's kind of been at the point of his career where now he can just make the movies that he wants. Like, he doesn't just need to take jobs just because he needs a job. He can make what he wants and tell those stories greatly, and that's fantastic.
I mean, he hasn't needed to do that since Batman Begins. If you look at his filmography, he's between the Batman movies, he was sprinkling in art house films that make a killing because his movies are fantastic.
Yeah, and to make those movies, because I think he said Insomnia was also during Batman, between The Dark Knight and Rises.
Insomnia was right before Begins. Inception was between Dark Knight and
Rises.
I
was thinking of Inception. Yeah, my bad.
Yep.
To be making those movies in the middle of making Batman movies, too, like in between them, that makes it even more incredible that he's just banger after banger, year after year in that time frame is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he made, what is that, 5 movies and 5 movies in 7 years and didn't miss.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't miss. Like, it's insane. Imagine, though, you're at the time, 37-year-old guy, 36, 37, and Warner Brothers literally hands you the keys to the kingdom. Make our Batman movies, and we'll let you do whatever the heck you want.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at this point in time, he can make whatever he wants to make. His next movie could be about the Marshmallow Man. And I'm convinced it would probably... I mean, that would be a good movie, but just make the Muffin Man like a serial killer. Fantastic. But no, it's about the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and how he grew to giant size and had to fight the Ghostbusters. And I guarantee you it will be the best movie you've ever seen.
Better than the actual Ghostbusters with that.
Explain.
I haven't actually seen it. I'm just memeing on it. Fun fact, so the medical condition experienced by Leonard is a real condition, in anterograde amnesia. which is the inability to form new memories after damage to the hippocampus. During the 1950s, doctors treated some forms of epilepsy by removing parts of the hippocampus, which would result in the same memory problems.
So in the 1950s, there were a lot of Leonards running around.
Apparently, yeah.
Wow. I mean, you also have to think the 1950s, they were performing lobotomies. So, like, whew, they got a little weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, it is... See, again, that's the thing. The movie's believable. I would act the same way Leonard acted. Okay?
Okay, I'm sorry. I just read this in the fun facts. Guess how many days this movie took to shoot?
12.
25.
That's really not long at all.
That it took them less than a month to shoot this movie.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense with the budget, too, though.
It does. But still, to get that quality of acting in an almost 2-hour movie in only a month.
Yeah,
I'd be curious, like, this is all a bit different, but like, I wonder how long it took to shoot like the most recent Star Wars trilogy. I bet that was
those movies shoot for like 60 days.
Yeah,
at least if not 90. But you also have to think this one. It's 2 hours long, but you see a lot of the same scenes a couple of times, or at least parts of them. I would imagine the editing the more interesting. Well, no, like the whole point of it is they're the same. They're the same-ish.
Yeah, so they're the same. Like they're very similar. Like it's slightly different.
Yeah. But I would imagine most of the time in this movie was spent on editing. Just that would be my guess. I know Oppenheimer didn't take very long to shoot either. I want to say it was just a little under 2 months.
Okay, so The Last Jedi, for reference, began at Pinewood Studios in England in February 2016 and wrapped that July. Wow. So 5 months, give or take. I mean, that's obviously just a range. So it could be the end of February to the first day of July, or it could be the first day of February to the last day of July.
And which movie did you say that was?
The Last Jedi.
Wow. 5 months? That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, Oppenheimer, the shooting on that lasted 57 days.
Mm.
That's a 3-hour long movie.
Yeah, so you could argue that's another credit to Nolan is he's that efficient and that good of a director that he's able to get the quality that he wants out of his actors in a much shorter time than other movies.
And I mean, if you listen to actors talk about him, they want to be there. They want to work with him because he's that good of a director. For example, and we can end the show after this before we just completely talk about Nolan until we run out of things to talk about next week. But for example, Matt Damon for this new one, in Marriage Counseling, he had told his wife that he would take time off of acting after Air. Unless
but he got an exception put in.
Yeah. And then Chris Nolan called him, and here we are.
Yes, like just imagine that, like Matt Damon and his wife are in marriage counseling over this, and he goes, "Yeah, I'll quit acting," but Chris Nolan.
Yeah, like I think he said he'd take a year off unless Chris Nolan called.
And guess what happened?
Yep.
He may or not have sent Chris Nolan a text, and Nolan called the next day.
No, like if you okay, I'm gonna go ahead and say this. I was planning on saving it for next week. One of the things I've been reading about Nolan is the way he casts people is he just calls us friends. So like Cillian Murphy has been in a lot of his movies, like a lot of his movies. I want to say like 7 of the 12 or whatever it is. But every time Nolan just goes, "Hey man, want to make a movie?" He says it's very hard to call people up and ask them for dinner because they always think they're like in the running for a part.
Yeah, but I mean at the same time that's like a credit to him of like he knows what actors he would want for movies. So he's like, "Hey, this guy will be a good fit in this movie. Hey, you want to come do a movie? Sure, great."
Yeah, it's fantastic, and he works with the same people over and over again. Bale in all 3 Batman movies. And in The Prestige, like that's 4. Murphy in a lot of movies. Then like let's see, another one he works with. Did he work with DiCaprio more than once? No, but like most of the time he's working with people in like the same 4 or 5 movies, and the actors he's working with are these legendary actors.
Mm-hmm.
They are Scorsese caliber actors. Like it's incredible for somebody of his age to have pulled off what he has, and especially at the time he made this movie, I would argue that this is probably the best movie ever made by a man who's 30 years old.
I mean, probably, honestly.
Especially when you have to think when they were shooting, because when did they start shooting? Like what year was that? I would imagine it was at the latest 99.
Yeah, I mean, it came out in 2000, so it was definitely in the 90s.
Yeah. So,
this was filmed almost around the time George Lucas did The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
in that trilogy.
Yeah, September 7th to October 8th of 1999. 25 days. Also, fun fact, Pearce was on set every day during filming, although all 3 principal actors, so Pearce, Pantoliano, and Moss, only performed together on the first day, shooting exterior scenes outside of Natalie's house. All of Moss's scenes were completed in the first week, including follow-up scenes at Natalie's home, Ferdy's bar, and the restaurant where she meets Leonard for the final time. But that's 1999, Grant.
Yeah.
You know how old the man was in 1999?
How old?
29. So a 29-year-old made arguably one of the greatest mystery thrillers in history. And then proceeded to just make banger after banger ever since. It's incredible. It's just incredible. We don't have clips. This is not the kind of movie you pull a clip from. This is the kind of movie you sit down and watch. It demands your attention for the full 2 hours. It's not going to make you sit there rolling on the floor laughing. There's no clip I can pull that would go, this is the crux of the movie. Just go sit down and watch it. It's fantastic. I think Grant and I are in agreement here on that.
Yeah, it's just a fantastic overall movie. And I don't know. I feel like we've just said everything. Like, it's extremely well written, directed, acted, edited, especially for how cheap the budget was. Like I said, what do you complain about? What do you nitpick? I mean, I'm sure you could find 1 or 2 things to nitpick, but...
So supposedly there's a massive plot hole in it, and I can't figure out where the heck it is. I'm going to Google it really quickly just to mention this. Because I was reading about it. Let's see. Let's see. So essentially, the argument is that he shouldn't be able to remember anything. Like, for example, that John G. murdered his wife. Like, he shouldn't because of that memory loss. I don't know. It's, to me, not a big enough plot hole to worry about.
One of the goofs that I pulled up on IMDb is during the confrontation between Leonard and Teddy after Leonard has killed Jimmy. Leonard mentions the $200,000 in Jimmy's car. However, at this point, he's already forgotten about killing Jimmy, so he shouldn't be able to remember about the money.
I didn't think about that. Oh, well. Again.
Oh, no.
Man was 29. The movie's fantastic. I would argue it is the greatest mystery thriller of all time. At least the greatest one I've seen.
I haven't seen enough to say
that's why I can say it's the greatest one I've seen.
I've seen one.
Yeah. Next week, we're going to usurp it.
Batman Returns is the best Batman movie I've ever seen, and it's the only one.
Exactly. Batman Forever. Whew. Yeah. Ugh. So, anyway, I guess we say all this to say, wholehearted recommendation. The movie's very good. If you enjoy mystery, if you enjoy Chris Nolan, if you like Guy Pearce or Carrie-Ann Moss, or you just want to sit down and spend 2 hours thoroughly enthralled in a motion picture experience, go check out Memento. It's available for free somewhere, I'm sure. If not, your local library's got to have it. It's worth your time. And if they show it in a theater near you, go see it. Like, it's that simple, guys. It's one of those movies you don't want to miss. Anyway, if you've enjoyed the episode, first off, come back next week. We're going to be talking about another Nolan movie. We got to discuss which one. I believe we're keen on Insomnia at this point, because Insomnia is another one that I think you kind of have to see. So next week we will be talking about Insomnia, starring Al Pacino and Robin Williams. After that, who knows? It'll be another Nolan movie until the end of August. By the way, guys, it's freaking August. I can't believe it. If you've enjoyed the show, though, do us a favor. If you want to keep the lights on, or in my case off, you can go to patreon.com/theculturednerd. That helps us, and you can obviously donate. That helps us keep the lights on. That helps us pay for movie rentals. That helps us pay for this lovely software we're using to do all our production stuff. That helps me and Grant stare at each other awkwardly at least once a week on camera, sitting there talking about a movie I forced him to watch. It is well worth your time and money. If you do that, let us know. Send us an email. We will make sure to shout you out specifically on air if you do it for us. Like, that is something we will do for you. Heck, I'd love to talk to you if you were a donor, a patron, if you will. As always, I've been your host, Grant Ingram.
And I've been your co-host, Grant Skillen. Thank you to all the Patreon supporters supporting the network. Thank you to Jose for the logo and Taylor for the intro.
And thank you, viewer, for joining us. If you enjoyed this, leave a like, subscribe. That really is helping us out right now. We're trying to grow a new channel from scratch. That's tough to do. If you enjoy this and want to check out other shows on the Culture Nerd Network, go check that out by scanning the QR code there on the left. Or if you want to check out our other show with some cool interviews, some other fun stuff, you can scan that QR code on the right. And some of those YouTube videos are up on this channel as well. Make sure to, as Michael Keaton's Batman says, tell all your friends about us. And we'll catch you next week to talk about Insomnia, not the lack of sleep, the movie. See you then.